Question: how do the Irish rich get rich? Answer: property. To a very substantial extent, property and property development. What is one of the major sources of corruption and corruption scandals in this country over recent years? Answer: property and property development. And that's what's at stake when we're talking about the integrity of Bord Pleanála and the entire planning process. Is we have a shameful history of corruption on the issue of property, because somebody can be made very, very, very rich very, very quickly if certain planning decisions are made, or if they are not made. And one of the interesting things, I think, about one of the allegations, and I of course won't prejudice the investigation of these things, but one of the allegations against Mr. Hyde is that he had a stake in development land near to a site where he was involved in denying a permission. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because of course it is possible, if you have development land in one place, it's in your interest possibly not to allow a development near to that which might, if you like, undermine your ability to make profit on your development site. Personally, I think that may well explain the slowness in delivering social and affordable housing in this country, because why on earth would private for-profit developers want to see lots of affordable and social housing which would be cheaper than the very expensive housing they want to build and sell? The Shangana site, for example, we've been campaigning for 15 years for public and affordable housing, not a sod turned, but private developers banging up strategic housing, so-called strategic housing developments all over the place, making lots and lots of money, getting permission, sometimes not building, or building at their own pace when they can maximise their profit. And of course, we remember from the Celtic Tiger days, a lot of the stuff these private developers built turned out to be rubbish. As we're now going to discover with the defective building scandal, maybe 70 or 80% of the stuff that was built during the Celtic Tiger was fire defective. People are now going to carry the can for huge amounts of money, and all of this rubber stamped through the planning system to create fortunes for property developers who helped crash the entire economy. And there is a very important warning in this, in the integrity of the planning system on Bord Pleanála, it should come into very, very sharp focus when we talk about the danger of what was done on land by private property developers and a planning system that didn't work properly with what they may do with the offshore, because there is a gold rush on for the offshore in terms of the development of offshore sites for renewable energy by private for-profit companies mostly. I mean, one way we could at least potentially mitigate against the possibilities of corruption planning and poor planning driven by profit is not to give away our offshore sites for renewable energy to private for-profit companies as we are doing. That would at least remove some of the incentive for corruption and bad planning. So there's a lot at stake in getting this right. And of course, I find it interesting that so many, particularly on the Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael benches, are forever giving out about the fact that ordinary people may object to certain developments, that they might take judicial reviews. I heard Deputy Lahart ridiculously suggest 10 cake sales could be enough to mount a judicial review. He obviously hasn't ever been involved in trying to mount a judicial review. It costs tens and tens and tens of thousands of euros. Mostly communities don't actually have the wherewithal to mount judicial reviews, often against absolutely awful planning applications which are driven purely by profit. And then, of course, so often the planners. I mean, one way to ensure the integrity of Bord Pleanála is to listen to the planners. And that if a group of 2 people, I mean, it's shocking, 2 people, often appointed from organisations that didn't even exist, making planning decisions where they override professional planners and are not even required to give a planning reason as to why they've done it. So we need root and branch reform of Bord Pleanála.